Hi, and welcome to my presentation for my honor graduation portfolio project for Nucamp. My name is Austin, and this is going to be a walkthrough of two different projects that I worked on. The first one I'm calling Guideog. It's essentially a website where people can build and host collaborative guides. Now, these guides work by essentially different database levels for subjects, categories, guides, steps, and then reference step chains, which I'll go into in just a little bit. The server behind this was built using Express Server, and for authentication, it's using Passport with a JSON Web Token strategy. I have all of the user authentication set up similar to how it was done in our course project, with just a few different variations, which I'll go into later as well. Essentially, for this project, the main points that I thought were turned out pretty good was the website itself, which does get live data from the server. Now, I haven't actually gotten the application page set up, which is going to be the bulk part of the project, where essentially I'm going to have cards here representing the guides, and then two different sidebars, which again, this will end up looking much better at the end, but it'll be essentially references for guides, categories, and steps. Now, overall, the main problem that I had with getting this all set up was that I didn't use population from the start, so I'm going to end up having to go back through my routers and handle everything through population, since as of right now it's a little bit convoluted. That way then I can reference documents similar to like a SQL database. So if I was to give you an example of a URL, it would end up looking pretty long, which again I also need to get sorted out through just using basic routing by model instead of through chaining together a bunch of different things, which again that'll come through like an AJAX request and different just simple additions that I can make. As of right now, the login function doesn't work on the actual application, so I created a test client to kind of visualize how this will work. So essentially what happens right now is I log in with just any username and password, and it will return a JSON Web Token into local storage. Eventually, I want to secure this more by doing a kind of double cookie request setup, which would be a lot more secure, but this is what I have going on right now, just to kind of visualize that this does in fact work. I do have a project map for what I've done so far. We have our server router authorization, and then the main setup for the database. So again, basically, for the most part, this is going to go from category, so that's what they'll get presented with at the start, is basically a category, and then in here there will be subjects. In those subjects there will be guides, and going back, each guide will have different steps. And so steps are essentially the user contributions to guides. So somebody will create a step for a guide, let's say a walkthrough for a video game at a certain level, and somebody else, for example, thinks that that's not good enough, creates a different step, and then adds it into the step chain for that portion of the guide. That can then get upvoted, eventually replace the step, and then this step will go down onto the step chain, which can kind of be visualized in the model for steps, which is inside a category here. So there's basically a step chain schema, which is just a bunch of step references. Those all get inserted into the step chain schema, and then those all have like upvotes so that it can get rated inside of the step chain. So moving on quickly, just because I don't have a lot of time for this, I also created a different project, which is a web scraper. Now, this was more of a representation of not necessarily a database, but just the server itself in the back end. Basically, what I have set up here is I have a basic Express server hooked up to a client using Puppeteer, and this Puppeteer basically creates an automated browser. Now, what this does is essentially web scrapes a single page application. So as you can see it in action here, we typed in a part, it'll get the location for the warehouse, and then it'll do a bunch of other things, essentially that happened way too quickly to see, and it'll spit out search results, which I am kind of handling with regular expressions at the moment in order to make better. I don't really have a good example of that just offhand, but here you can also see how that works in this portion. So overall, I think that what I learned is I need to focus on the big architecture of sites, because overall I've gotten things to be quickly out of hand, which is why I've tried to start visualizing. I'm really looking forward to learning authorization and authentication more and implementing that into my site, and also just having a better layout for my website. I would also like to move on to MUI instead of React Strap, just because I found that to be more supported. Anyways, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.